Hello again, everybody. You are watching our Vegas Voice family. I'm Dan Roberts, the publisher of the Vegas Voice, and I have the great pleasure of introducing our great Vegas Voice columnists who are really a family. A prime example of that is the person to my right, Kathy Manney, who does the Around Our World column every month. Kathy,
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here, Dan.
Yeah, Kathy, my first thought was you're our oldest columnist, and then I realized that's not the right term. You're our longest running columnist, and I couldn't believe it when I looked it up, but you've been with us since March of 2006.
That's correct, I have.
Isn't that amazing how we
It's the
survived that
longest
long?
job I've ever had
Yeah.
in years, yes.
You bring a unique perspective to travel because of, I guess, being married to John, which I'd like you to talk about, and where you've been and what you've done and what you've seen. Talk a little bit about that. Where do we start?
Where do we start? I have been married 60 years for one thing. John and I were married very young.
Right.
I was 17 and he was 19. He was in the Air Force, and he was first stationed at Travis Air Force Base in California. And from there we went to Tucson, Arizona. And from there we went to Virginia. And from Virginia, John went to Taiwan.
Right.
And our lives changed dramatically after that. He was gone quite a bit.
Right.
And from Taiwan, we went in a unit move in a C-130, which it's not normal that the families go in a military plane, but they whisked us out of Taiwan to the Philippines. And during the time that we were in the Philippines, it was the end of the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, when featured once in The Voice, I helped with Operation Baby Lift,
Yeah.
which was the evacuation of orphans out of Vietnam. And we returned to the United States from the Philippines and lived in Texas before John retired, and we came to Las Vegas. And we've been in Las Vegas since 1978.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you literally have been all over the world. And one of the great things that we have is that you get to write about it. And I know that people have come up to me and come up to you and said, wait a minute, there's no way Kathy and John have been to all these places. But you really have. You've been to every place.
we really have. I don't write about any place that I don't have firsthand knowledge of. And in our retirement, travel has been our hobby. And we are on the go quite a bit often. We're slowing down. I mean,
Yeah.
to be, give the ages, John's 79, I'm 77, so we're getting slower at it, but we're still going. This summer we went to Yellowstone and Yosemite and went down the Snake River on a float boat. And
Yeah.
coming from Oregon originally, going down the Snake River is kind of like Lewis and Clark,
Right.
and so that's how I associated doing that adventure.
I mean, I can give you a test of how many states you've been to and how many places, but you've been to a place that not many people have been to on the bottom of the world, haven't you?
Yes, John and I, in 2007, went to Antarctica. And any place we might travel since then, can't top that.
Yeah.
It was extraordinary. It was a ship, the country, from Chile. Anyway, it was a Chilean Navy vessel that had been converted for passengers. And it wasn't your typical ship as far as the number of passengers. The total people on board were about 70. And the beauty is just extraordinary. And we went ashore, we walked with penguins. They have no fear. They could be as close as you and I. And they walk along with you, and it was just thrilling to see them that close up. And I've got some fantastic photos of that.
And it has to be something that will forever change your life, only because you've been to places that people only imagine and dream about.
Well, it's a bit like traveling and being with National Geographic.
Uh-huh.
And it was the same while we lived in Taiwan. I would tell our children, because we were in Taiwan in the 1970s. It was not as developed as it is today. And I would tell our children, look, take it in, because you're living something very special.
Oh, without doubt.
And as we would go up narrow highways and everything, there were still people with oxen-driven carts and everything. So, I mean, this was, and might add that what was on those oxen-driven carts was sugar cane. They grow a lot of it there.
Okay.
And another anecdote, going back to Taiwan, is that when I landed in Taipei, then we had to go down island to Taichung, which is about 150 miles in the middle of the island. And I didn't have much experience knowing about the country. And I would see rice paddies and mile after mile straw huts. And I continued to see these, and I thought, oh my goodness, the few things that I did ship over, am I going to have to live in one of these?
Mhm.
And so we kept going down the island. Well, it turned out the straw huts were for growing mushrooms, and we did not have to live in a straw hut. But I was inexperienced at the time. And
If you had to pick one spot, you have one last trip to take, any place in the world, where would you go?
I think I'd go back to Italy.
And where? And to see what?
All of the country. When we did visit Italy, it was a 10-day trip, and we saw it from the south to the north, and we even went into Switzerland. But you're rushed in a trip like that. It would be nice to just spend a summer there.
That would be your ideal. You
I
have
think
one
so.
last choice.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had to pick one spot where you say, no matter what, you can't pay me enough to go back to that spot, where would you go? Were there any places that were that bad, or you didn't like it, or the weather was no good, or maybe it was a tourist trap and you realized it after the fact?
There you have me on the spot.
Yeah.
I can't think of any place right off that I wouldn't go back to. But there have been some experiences and that we can laugh about later.
Right.
I won't go into some of the really silly things, but we have had some. Not every trip is,
Ideal,
A-okay,
yeah.
but most everything you can make something out of it.
And one of the things besides the adventurous part, you and John, the idea that a couple can be together that long without killing each other or anything along those lines, it says a lot about you and about John.
One thing I don't like to be asked is tell me your secret. There is no secret. It's different personalities in every relationship and different set of circumstances. And so for people that are thinking, well, what's your secret? Just to save that question because it doesn't really apply to everyone is different.
Right.
And how we've made it, I don't know. I asked myself. I think we were extremely young and didn't appreciate how, when you are young, you think you're more mature than you are.
Yeah,
That's
always.
what amazes me now.
Yeah.
I look back and I think, how did we handle just the basics of renting a place and getting started and everything? But you just kind of put one foot in front of the other. And 60 years later, here we
just
are.
60 years later, there you are. And in your trip around the world, have you, obviously you've been to Europe because you said you've been to Italy. You've been to Asia.
Yes.
What else? Have you hit South America? Where else have you been?
En route to Antarctica,
Mm-hmm.
we were in Argentina. We didn't see as much there as I would have liked, but we saw some, so I have seen some of South America. Central America, we've been to Honduras and Costa Rica, I think so. We have seen, and we've been to Canada, of course, and Mexico.
And when you go on a trip, do you like going on a cruise, or do you like just getting on a bus, or just going on your own, or with a group? How do you go about doing it?
I don't enjoy travel by airline.
Okay, who does?
So, so as far as, we have made one cruise to Hawaii, and I'd like to do that again, rather than ever fly there again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we're getting older, cruises are more
That's the way
on
to go,
our
right?
agenda, yes.
Yeah. A secret that I do want to get from you is that since you've been all over the world, how do you pack? How do you pack a suitcase?
Well, a lot of people don't like the way I pack when I tell them. I save clothes that we're going to get rid of anyway, and then we can leave them behind. It opens up room in your suitcase if you want to bring anything back. And you can, a lot of people think, well, if it's bad enough you're going to get rid of it, why would you take it on vacation? But you can always dress things up. And if for a woman, if it's a blouse you don't care for, put a nice scarf on it. and leave the blouse behind, but bring the scarf back home. And I have an aunt that is no longer with us, but she was making a trip to Israel. And the person selling the trip had said, take holy underwear. And she thought that was the most hysterical thing. Why take it? But the point was, take underwear that you're not keeping, so it opens up your suitcase for more to bring back home.
Wow. Okay.
So that's kind of basically how I travel, is things that we just had a 10-day trip to Yellowstone. I saved up John's old socks, and so every day he threw a pair of socks away. We didn't have to bring those things back home.
You don't have to wash them either.
We don't have to wash them either is a good one also.
That's great. What last tip would you give to people who want to go on a trip? We have a couple of seconds left. What would you tell people? Or do they come to you when they read your article and say, I like this place, I didn't like that place? What do you even tell people? Is it just the trip itself or the destination or the journey?
What launched us traveling with Vegas Voice and Stu Cooper was the trip to Italy that I mentioned, the 10-day, and we had gone to one of the breakfast brunches. And as I sat there, I asked the couple across from us, what are you going to sign up for? And the woman said, well, we can't sign up for anything. My husband's starting chemo on Monday.
Yeah.
That's when I realized someday is now. And that's what started me with The Voice,
right,
if you recall. And it really is. Once you are retired, what you've been saving for someday, you have to wake up and realize when someday is, and instead of pushing it forward. So we began to travel in our retirement, and making now is our someday.
No, I think that's great. That's great. Kathy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I can't tell you what a joy it's been to have you as a columnist for 12, 13 years now, and I hope 13, if not more.
Thank you, Dan. I've enjoyed it. You don't know, it's opened many new opportunities for me as well.
That's great. This is Dan Roberts for our Vegas Voice family, and we will see you next time.